morning, everyone. Welcome to Berean Bible Church. We are excited to have you joining us online. My name is Paul. I'm going to be your host for the next hour or so. Our music team is going to start things off with some worship, and then Pastor Justin will be continuing our series on community. Then I'll be back to wrap things up.
Stronger, the King of glory, the King above all kings, who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder and leaves us breathless in awe and wonder, the King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. You've done for me. Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan a son and daughter? The King of glory, the King of glory, who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance. The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. Yeah, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Yeah, all that you've done for me.
Hey! Hey, you!
Hey, welcome to Berean. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. I'm Justin, and I serve as a teaching pastor here. My family and I are all trying to figure out what's our new normal going to look like this fall, trying to figure out our schedule for school and work and family time. And I know we're not alone in that. I think parents and teachers and students across the country are all trying to figure out this month, what does the new normal look like, and how do we make this work? As you think about this year, and you may not want to, I mentioned last week that if we knew what this year would hold, we probably wouldn't have celebrated on New Year's Eve last year. But when you think about this year, I'm just kind of curious, what are words that you would use to describe 2020? I'm guessing I can guess some of them, right? I'll throw some on the screen here. I think probably some of the words that crossed your mind are words that crossed my mind: tension, worry, confusion, uncertainty, and the list goes on. 2020 has just been a really challenging year. And I got thinking, it's been a while since I've lived in a place where these emotions filled my life. Really, it was probably 9 years ago was the time where most of the country experienced a lot of this during September 11th and the attacks of that day. But it's been a long time since we've learned and had to deal with how to navigate a time that's confusing and challenging and difficult. As I was thinking through just American history, I was thinking back to 80 years ago and the period of World War II, and how most people really around the world would have said this described their life at that time. So in a sense, misery loves company, so maybe there's something that's encouraging about us being at a place that other people have been in before, but really it's not that helpful to deal with it now, to deal with this difficult time now. Unless in a previous difficult time, someone dropped a lesson or a secret for how to navigate difficult times. Someone broke through the confusion and gave a clear, simple command. And the good news is there was such a time and there was such a secret. And that's what we're going to look at today. It was 2,000 years ago, and Jesus was finishing up a night with his friends and his followers. They were doing a meal together, which we now know to be the Last Supper. They didn't necessarily know that at the time. And Jesus had gone into the room and he had washed the feet of all of his followers. And so that introduced even more tension and uncertainty and worry. What's going on? Why is he doing this stuff? And they pushed back against him, but he insisted on serving them. And then came the shock at dinner when Jesus said that someone in the circle, someone in the room was going to betray him. And they're thinking, how's that going to happen? How's our tight-knit group here going to be torn apart? And the reality is that was only hours away from happening. Jesus was about to be arrested that night, and by the next day he would be dead. And so before their lives spin out of control, Jesus kind of cuts through all of the worry and the anxiety and the confusion. And he gives his followers a secret for building a new normal. And it's something that came to define them in the days and the years ahead. And it's something that has come to define Jesus followers for the last 2,000 years. It's not something you'd guess. It's not something that's intuitive, but it's something I want us to look at together. And it's in your copy of the scripture, John chapter 13. You're welcome to turn there and join if you want. I'm going to put the verses on the screen. There's a couple verses that we're going to look at from that night in the room with Jesus. John 13, verse 33, Jesus said this, "My children, I will be with you only a little longer. You will look for me. Where I am going, you cannot come." Now, we got to insert ourselves into the story for just a moment to see that this statement by Jesus would have caused a lot of worry, a lot of uncertainty. You see, the people around the table that night had given up just about everything to follow Jesus. They'd given up their employment, they'd given up their families, they'd given up their hobbies, and they're following Jesus because, well, they're convinced he's going to be the next king, and they're convinced they're going to be officials in his next kingdom. Little do they realize he is about to wear a throne, to wear a crown, but it's not going to be a crown of gold. It's going to be a crown of thorns. And so Jesus just kind of breaks the news. Guys, I'm leaving. And where I'm going, you can't come. And I can only imagine the anxiety that would have filled their hearts, the way their heads must have all been spinning. The group's about to be torn apart. Someone's going to deny him. And Jesus is like, I'm leaving you, and you can't come. And I'm sure they're thinking, now, wait a minute, Jesus. We're only 3 years into this thing. Like, we're juniors. We haven't even graduated. We don't know what to do next. You haven't fully equipped us or prepared us for what we do without you. We thought we're going to be with you. We thought we're going to follow you. And now you're giving us this chaos. Now you're throwing our world upside down, and we just don't know what to do next. And so the challenge for these guys is they had been raised to believe the 10 Commandments. They had been raised to follow them. They were raised to believe all the commands of the Old Testament. They knew there were 613 different commandments, and they had memorized them, and they broke them without trying. Religion was confusing, and it was challenging to keep up with all the laws and understand exactly all the different regulations that you needed to follow. And the religious leaders of their day would add more constantly. And you think it's hard in New York where there's a new executive order every 5 minutes and you can almost break these orders by accident without trying. These guys had no idea how to do this, and especially how to do it without their leader with them. And so in the season of confusion, in the season of uncertainty and tension, Jesus just provides them with maybe the clearest instruction that they had ever heard in their life. And here's what Jesus says, verse 34. "A new command I give you." You're like, what? A new command, another command. But this new command wasn't just new, it was a summary command. It was the command that encapsulated the other commands. Love one another. It's so simple. It's so clear. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. It's kind of funny, even window blinds have more instructions than this. And yet Jesus just says, guys, I'm going to make it easy for you. I'm going to help you build a new normal in all of the uncertainty, in all of the confusion, in all of the chaos and worry. Let's just boil it down to this. Love one another. And Jesus, who's a master communicator, probably because he invented communication, he wades into their confusion, he wades into the uncertainty of the moment, and he just kind of parts it like the Red Sea. And he says, guys, I'm going to boil it all down to this. Love one another. How's that for a survival secret? You know, it's so simple, and it kind of fits with what Jesus already said earlier was the greatest commandment. The greatest commandment is to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the second commandment, the new commandment, is really simple. Love one another. And they might have been wondering, well, what does it look like? And so Jesus just told them, it looks like the way I've loved you, the way I've cared for you, the way I've prioritized you, the way I've spent time with you, the way I've loved you. That's how you're to love others. And Jesus is like, if you do this, then everyone's going to know that you're my followers. Now, this command is so simple. It's so clear. You might be wondering, are you serious? This is the secret? This is the secret for survival? Well, here's the challenge. Here's the rub for us, is that this command is so counterintuitive. Now, it sounds nice, but to do it is so counterintuitive. And here's why. When you and I have our backs up against the wall, when you and I are in a difficult situation, what we do immediately, our default, is we go into survival mode. And survival mode is all about self-preservation. And we care about ourselves. We care about us. You know, it's just normal. You don't have to feel bad about this. It's just normal that you prioritize yourself. I prioritize myself, right? When I get up, I shower myself, I brush my teeth, I feed myself, I care for myself. That's just a normal pattern for a person, right? We prioritize ourselves and our families. But the calling of a Jesus follower is much greater than that. Right? There's essentially two main paths that you can walk as a person. One path is just to stay at the default, a self-focus, right? A baby, a toddler, they're consumed with themselves and their wants and their needs. And if you don't meet those needs instantly, they will make your life miserable until you do. Right, moms and dads? And so that's the default human response is I'm gonna be self-focused. And Jesus says, no, wait a minute. There's another path, and it's this path of prioritizing God and loving others. And that's really counterintuitive. It's really challenging. It's really different from our default. And Jesus says, I want you to take a detour. I want you to get off the default path of being self-consumed, self-focused, focusing on your needs and your wants and your survival. And I want you to begin to beat a path that's different, where you're focused on God and you're focused on others. And as I think of those two different paths, I think of the times in my life where I walk down the path of self-focus, where I do what I want to do and I try to experience all the things that I want to experience. And I eventually realize when I do that it's an empty road. It leads to isolation and loneliness and relational poverty. And joy is often lost as I pursue the things that I want. And the next thing, it just never satisfies. And you've probably been there too. And the perfect example in this is a guy named Solomon, an ancient king who had it all. He had all the women, he had all the money, and he had everything money could buy. And he spent his life on a path of focusing on himself. And at the end of his life as an older man, he sits down and he writes a journal. And his journal is filled with a sadness and an emptiness. And the word that he keeps using in his journal over and over is meaninglessness. Meaninglessness. It's empty. In fact, if you have a copy of the Bible, you have his journal in there, and it's Ecclesiastes. And Ecclesiastes is the journal of a man who went on a quest for happiness, and he found nothing but emptiness. And many of us live our lives the same way. We find ourselves on a weekly basis devoting much of our week, maybe all of our week, to a self-focus and a focus on our own families. And Jesus calls us to a detour. He calls us to a different path, a path that would focus on him and others instead of just ourselves. And listen, this is a path that isn't going to improve your bank account. It's not going to improve your schedule. It's probably going to rob from those things. But what you get in return for the loss of time and the loss of finances when you pursue this path is a rich, satisfying life of meaning. And it's the kind of life that God wants for his followers. And the challenge with this is what you get in return is so much better, but yet there's constant pressure to go down that road of self-focus. But when you choose this road, what you get in exchange is you exchange spiritual emptiness with spiritual intimacy. You exchange relational poverty with growth and maturity. You exchange isolation with relationship. And one of the reasons that we just don't do it all the time as a normal part of our lives is because we have an enemy named Satan. And Jesus said Satan is like a prowling lion, and he prowls the earth, seeking whom he can steal, kill, and devour. And so Satan's tactic is really simple. It's the same tactic that wolves use in battle is you try to separate and isolate a member of the herd until it's weakened enough that you can capture, kill, and devour it. And Satan does that all the time. It's one of his best tactics. If he can separate you from your faith family, he can eventually isolate you and he can eventually wear you down. And so this is why we've been encouraging people to return to church. It's not because we have this need to have all of our seats filled or to return to the way things were. It's because the longer you go being isolated from your faith family, the more likely you are to give in to temptation. The more likely you are to experience isolation and discouragement and depression, and the list goes on. Now listen, coming on Sundays is not the only way to stay connected to your faith family. So don't view this as some kind of guilt trip or high pressure talk right now. It's not that at all. There's another way to stay connected to your faith family, and it's really a way that I think most everybody can and should do. And it's being connected in a small group, a connect group. And I think many people in our church are beginning to realize the importance of that. Even though we're only at about half of our people back on Sunday mornings, we're getting almost all of our small groups restarted this fall. Out of 35 groups that we had back at the beginning of the year, we have 29 of those groups that are starting up and that are meeting again this month. And I'm realizing and I'm seeing that there's a hunger for relationships. There's a desire for community. And people are beginning to realize that isolation might be a temporary survival mechanism, but it is a really lousy long-term plan. I've found in my own life that small groups aren't just a way for me to stay connected to my faith family, but they're really a way for me to practice Jesus' new command of loving one another. See, because I can find that an entire week can go by and I don't even take time to think or care about or serve or love anyone other than me and my family. But small group, connect group helps me do that. So let me just briefly share with you a little of my experience with connect group. For the past 8 years now, our church has been doing these small groups. We saw the need, we saw the isolation, we saw the relational poverty, and we wanted to help fix it. And so Annie and I have committed to being part of a Connect group. Now for us, the challenge is that we are a family with young kids. We have 5 kids, ages 2 to 10. And so those of you who have young kids realize that evening commitments are really hard. In fact, I'd say it's one of the hardest commitments on our calendar. And it's something that we just can't really pull off very well because some of our smaller kids, they need to be in bed by 8 or everyone's going to pay the next day. And so something that Annie and I have done now is we've kind of divided and conquered. She goes to a small group on Monday nights. I go to a small group on Wednesday nights with my older daughters. And so we found a way to stay connected to a small faith community, even though we're not connected, both of us, to the same one. And it's not ideal. I look forward to some day to where we can both be in a group together, but this is just the season of life that we're in. But we're so committed to being part of a group that this is how we're doing it to make it happen. And, you know, you may wonder what's a Connect group. I'm just assuming like you know, and I don't want to do that. A Connect group, a small group, is just a gathering, a weekly gathering of anywhere from 8 to 18 people. And they meet for food, they meet for discussion, spiritual discussion, and prayer. And it's really that simple. Some groups are studying specific topics, other groups are studying the sermon, but they meet on a weekly basis. And they sign this covenant at the beginning of a semester or a term. And that covenant just says, look, I'm going to prioritize this group on a weekly basis, and I'm going to keep what's shared in this group to myself. I'm going to keep it confidential. So it's funny, there's some friends that I have in the Monday group that Annie goes to, and occasionally they'll say, hey, I'm sure you know about this. I shared it at group, and they'll share it with me. And I'll say, actually, I didn't know it. Annie is so tight-lipped, even to me, about what's shared in her group. And that's what gives people the freedom to share openly and honestly in our small groups, is that there's this confidentiality agreement. What's shared in group, it stays in group. I'm telling you what, in my small group this past year, we've had people, and last fall, we had people share life stories and challenges that they hadn't shared with anyone else. But they felt confident sharing it with our group because it was a place that was safe. It was people that cared about them and people that weren't going to share that with anyone else. And so for me, I find that the weekly rhythm that I've developed of going to a group is what I need so that I learn to love one another, so that I can do that, so that I can love others, so that I can love God more and love people better. And I'll tell you, I realize that going to group is not easy. Like for me, it's one of the most challenging things that I do. And it's simply for this reason. I'm selfish by nature, right? My evenings, I'm often drained physically and emotionally. When it gets dark earlier, I don't really want to go back out somewhere else. And so for me, it's a hard thing to do. But I'll tell you what, almost every week, when I push through the exhaustion, when I push through any of the obstacles and I go to group, I come out of that group, man, and I'm so glad that I did. I've had people time. I've had relationship time. I've been loved and I've gotten to love. And it's a pretty awesome thing. And I've grown to love my Connect group. This year, we've grown closer to each other, and I don't know where I would be spiritually or relationally without them. When the summer hit this year, we just kind of abandoned our study, and we said, let's just gather, and let's just do a cookout, let's do swimming, let's just enjoy each other. And all summer, that's what our group did, is we just did relational time on Wednesday nights. And for all of us, it was like, this is such a breath of fresh air. I need this. I want this. Thank you, God, for this. Back in the spring when everything was shut down, we wanted to keep meeting. And so like a lot of groups, we met virtually. We met using Zoom. And I've got some pictures of our Zoom. This was one of our first weeks, I think, in March. And we all looked pretty excited and happy. That kind of changed as the weeks wore on. But this is us. And different weeks, different people were able to make it. Not everyone every week, but we got together and we connected. And we kind of made it through the shutdown with each other in that community, praying for each other, lifting each other up. And here we were on May 6th. Here's the week after, May 13th, soon before we were able to meet again in person. But I'll tell you what, our group has been so valuable in my life. And I don't just mean the current group I'm in now, I mean the groups that I've been part of the last 8 years, because it's helped me love God more, and it's helped me love people better. Now listen, I'm a pastor. I spend most of my days in the Word of God and teaching people how to obey it. And I still need a group of Christians to walk with and do life with and to live in community. So I'm just using myself as an example because if I'm in the Bible surrounded by Christians every day and I need it, I'm pretty convinced that you do too. And this is something that we want for you. I don't want you to take my word for it. So I had asked my Connect group this past week if some of them would share their stories and their experiences with group, the good and the bad, and there were a few different couples that did. So I just want to share with you a little video of their story about Connect Group, and then we'll wrap up here on this end. Check this out.
Where I was prior to being in a Connect group and where I am now, and able to share very high things about God and sharing meals together, and just the connection that we've had with our group has grown rapidly.
I like the fact that I've made friends, and I believe there'll be people that I'll be friends with for forever. They're just, and not just in my Connect group, but in the one that I was in before, and this one, and the next one.
With a large church, you don't really get to personally know anybody without being in small group, and it helps you understand, where everybody's at a little bit more, and the trials that everybody faces and stuff, and how you can help people or how other people can help you.
You don't feel like you're going it alone. Other people have got struggles too, and you're not the only one. And some of theirs are worse than yours.
It totally amazed me how, even though we were the new ones of the group, it was only like a week after we started, people opened up and they were saying, we were talking about things that went on in our lives. And that really shocked me, because these people don't know me. They don't know us. And I says, they're telling us things that I don't think they want the world to know about. And so that put us at ease, knowing that this is the group we need to be in.
For me, small group is a highlight of my week. Just to go and be able to share and have fun and eat and learn about each other and about God's Word, and getting to know new people outside of your comfort zone and outside of your immediate friends and family.
Helps tremendously on staying on track with God and trying to study His Word, and because of the everyday routines of things getting in the way, and I've got so many things going on in the evenings that it just won't happen if it wasn't for group.
I think it's amazing to meet people, and when they tell you what their past was, find out how God's grace has brought them where they are now. You would never, ever, in your wildest dreams, picture what they tell you to who they are now. That God has just changed them.
I think our love grows for other people because we learn what they're facing, their issues, and we find our compassion for them and wanting to help people.
I think the biggest commitment to being in a group is to be there for somebody else, especially this year with everything else that's been going on, to be there with like-minded people to, not only have them lift you up, but you were there to help lift them up.
Just to hear other people's, what they were going through, and they had their struggles and we had ours, and we could pray for each other. I don't know what I would have done without it.
Because with my job, I never know what's going to come up. And it seems like the devil is always throwing something in there to put me in that attitude where I don't want to go because I've got too much going on right now. So that's a battle, is getting through that. Because once you go to group, it just kind of all goes away and you're glad you went.
The hardest part to orchestrate is to keep everybody focused. It's so easy for everybody to go on and start talking about this and this and this, and we get sidetracked, and then we got to bring them back in. I think that would be probably our biggest challenges. We all have an opinion. We all have an opportunity to share our thoughts, and at times when you think you're going down this other road and you hear other people, it kind of brings us all back into focus exactly where we should be focusing, and that is God. And being completely by yourself and just learning it from on a Sunday, you're only getting a small piece, but when you get in a group, everybody gets an opportunity to share their mind thoughts, and I feel that to me is a big piece for that.
Just because you've gone to one small group and maybe you didn't fit in or whatever, there's a ton of groups out there. There's one for you.
So I want to thank so much these couples that took the time to sit down and share their experience with you. And they were just being brutally honest about the good and the bad, the challenges. And the question that I really had for them that they answered was, why are you so committed to group despite all the challenges, despite it not being easy? And I really appreciated what they shared. There was another couple that didn't get a chance to record, but they wanted to share a little bit about their experience with group. The Urasek family. This is, Pete's not in the picture, but this is Jessica with their 3 precious kiddos. And they have a new baby, and so they haven't been able to be part of our group in a number of months. And we miss them like crazy. But she took the time to write down kind of their experience with group, and she wanted you to hear this. And just so you know, our group has continued to love and pray for them, even though they're not able to meet with us. We recognize there's seasons of life where, for different reasons, you may not be able to plug into a group. We get it. But as a habit, as a rhythm, being connected to a small circle of friends who are helping you love each other and love Jesus more is invaluable. So anyhow, here's what Jessica said. When we first began attending Berean, we were warmly welcomed by greeters, ushers, and pastors. We met several new faces that first couple of weeks, and we enjoyed the preaching. We were shown the children's department and met the teachers and nursery workers and guided through that weekly sign-in process. As time went on, our children began to make friends and plug in. However, we struggled to truly feel connected as adults. It was as if we were these tiny fish in this big sea of somewhat familiar faces. We tried sitting in different places. We had tried attending a different service time, and ultimately, we were discouraged at our inability to connect. So we got this novel idea. We decided to branch out and join a Connect group. We felt led to this as the option to determine if this church was truly a good fit for us in this season. And wouldn't you know, we connected. We were attending a group for only a short time when we realized that we had found true community. People to do life with, people to cry with, people to rejoice with, people to encourage us, and those that we've been able to minister to and extend God's love. People that will show up in pajamas at 8 p.m. with a plate of warm cookies because they sensed that that would help. We are grateful for the opportunity of the Connect Group, for the purpose it served for our family, and for the lifelong family we have integrated into. She says, if you are on the fence, what's it going to hurt? Go, have a meal, wear your comfy clothes, meet someone, open your heart, be real. You just never know what God has for you. We sure are thankful we stepped out and gave it a try. Jessica, I'm really thankful for you taking the time to write that and share that with us. I think her story and their experience is not rare. I think it's common. People struggle to connect on Sundays. People struggle to connect at home. And so the purpose of a small group is to have that circle of friends that you can learn from, do life with, grow in your walk with God. You need to know this morning that this isn't something that we're telling you to do because we want something from you, right? We don't. We're asking you to do this because we want something for you. Groups are going to meet starting this month to Thanksgiving, which is about 8 or 9 weeks. And then they'll take from Thanksgiving, usually till New Year's, off. And so what I'm asking you today is, would you prayerfully consider stepping in to a Connect group? No matter how challenging and difficult it might be for your schedule, no matter how difficult it might be for the way that you're wired in your personality, I'm telling you what, in our group, we have introverts and extroverts. We have younger kids, we have younger parents, we have middle-aged parents, we have kind of everything in between. And that diversity is part of what makes us strong, and it helps us to love and appreciate each other even more. So I'm pretty convinced that there's a group near you that would love for you to join them. So here's how you do that. If you just go on our website and go to our groups page, you go next step and then connect groups, you'll find this page. It'll tell you all about groups, and it'll help you plug in. And right here, you can click Browse Groups. You can look at the 29 different options. You can find a group near you that meets on a day or a night of the week that works for you. And listen, if none of them work for you for a certain reason, let us know, and maybe we can get one started at a time and a place that does work for you. This is genuinely what we desire for every single person in our church. And listen, if you are a coach or you are a leader or you are a host, thank you. Thank you for investing your time every week to help people love God more and to love one another better. Like, we know that that's a sacrifice, and we thank you for making that every week. Pastor Steve's been doing trainings at all campuses this month, and today's is here at our Green campus, where he's equipping us as coaches or leaders to lead well this fall. And so I want you to know that this is something we prioritize. This is something that we equip people to do, and we're doing it for you. I also want to just thank God that he gives us the ability to go through difficult times like 2020 and not to do it in a way that's isolated, not to do it in a way that's self-consumed and self-focused. So I don't know where you're at today. I don't know the focus of your typical week, but I just want to challenge you. Could you carve out one evening a week where you take your focus off yourself, off your family, off of your needs, and put it on other people? Because there's a circle somewhere of people that need you and want you just as much as you need and want them. We're going to wrap up, but I just want to reiterate the command of Jesus that we're trying to follow here. It's this simple. A new command I give you: love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. My friends, small groups, connect groups, they're not the only way to do that. But we genuinely think they're one of the best ways. And that's why I'm so committed to being part of one. And that's why I pray you this fall become committed if you're not already. And if you are already committed, I hope that today was just a reminder why you set aside that evening a week to be with people, to eat some food, and to build your relationship with God and others. Here's how I'd like us to end today. I want us to hear the life change story of Maria. And Maria was recently baptized, and she's going to share her story. You're going to get to see her baptism. But I want you to be listening, because in her story, she's going to share how her Connect group was part of that transforming process. Life's just better connected. And I hope and pray that we can help you get connected this month. Check out this story.
So my name is Maria Girastante, and I started coming to Berean 2 years ago in April. I didn't grow up in the church at all. I think I probably went to a Catholic Mass 10 times in my life, maybe. Never clicked with me. I didn't know what they were saying. I was young though. I didn't try. I was just kind of getting through it. I was pretty young, and I went through a bad breakup, and it left me in despair. Not knowing which way is up, not knowing who I am, what I'm doing here, what's this life we live, anything from a college major to what I want to do in life to who my friends are. I didn't know the right answer. You could put on a show, I could fake things, put things online, post whatever, but really, I didn't know which way to go. On my own, I was watching different sermons from different pastors on YouTube, reading different articles. I got some books. I didn't have a Bible, straight up Bible, but I had different books. And I was trying to piece it together because I definitely knew there was a gap in me that the culture and the society that I was in, I think I was 22, 21, nothing was doing it. My good friend Alexandra Cade invited me one day. We were at work and we were just talking. And she mentioned that she went to church, and I was interested. I always thought so highly of Alexandra. I thought just the way she carried herself, always the best to go to for advice and just insight, and I just thought she was a cool girl. I wanted more, and I was looking for more, and Alexandra had more. So I went to church with her and Josie Ray and Garrett, and I really liked it. It was cool. Nothing scared me away. The people were awesome, so I just kind of kept coming, and either sitting by myself or sitting with friends or whatever, and yeah, I'm hooked. I come mostly whenever I can, but really what changed for me was Connect Group. Connect Group's awesome, and the Whitaker Connect Group, and that is probably what but pulled me to get baptized. In March, I was convicted to do it, and then we got COVID, and then there was no church, and I said, okay, I guess I'm not getting baptized right now. But that was okay. It wasn't a big deal. We couldn't even meet for Connect Group, so that wasn't a big deal. And then things started rolling again, and I had some things going in my life that challenged me to get closer to God, and I said, okay, God, how about for once, I trust you, and I trust what you're doing. And what a better way and a better time to do that except get baptized. So I feel like this past month has been one of the best months of my life, and the week I got baptized was a crazy week. Things happened in my life where it shouldn't have been the best week of my life, but when I say that week was the best week of my life, I mean that. So one of the things that was most exciting to be able to share on my baptism day was that my family was there, and the week kind of leading up, I reminded them about it. I was like, hey, my baptism, you don't have to come if something comes up. I didn't want it to be like a pressured thing, but were they ready to go? Yes. Did they bring cupcakes? Yes, they did. And though they aren't believers per se, I'm not scared at all to share my faith with them anymore, and I feel like that's such a gift. And even if I start talking and they look at me like, okay, we get it, okay, but I think they do. They are getting it. And just when Zach was talking about what baptism meant and what it means as a Christian, I looked at my dad and my dad was tearing up, and I'm so glad he was there and that I had the courage to invite them, because it can be a hard thing when you mix those different groups of people. I try not to be a different person in them, but you kind of, when people want to talk about different things, they don't want to talk about faith per se, and I don't want to be pushy, or you can't argue your way into that, and I've learned that. So I feel the expression truly like picking up my cross, and you feel that. I mean, of course you want it to be, like I said, this exciting time, but at the same time, it's kind of, you feel it. I feel the conviction, and I feel the ways I need to change, and those aren't going to be comfortable. I've had to tell some friends, and they thought it was kind of just weird, and that's tough, because I feel like it's a different language we're speaking sometimes, but I'm going to do my best to share my faith with those people. But I'm just going to try to be still and see what he's doing in my life and the people around me, and keep on praying and coming to church, going to Connect Group, reading my Bible, and going from there. So, yeah, it's good. My name is Maria, and I want to follow Jesus.
Wasn't that awesome? Congratulations to Maria for taking that step of obedience and going public with her faith. She is on fire, could you tell? What I love about her story is that when she recognized that something in her life was missing, she started asking those big questions. She had a friend who pointed her to God, a community where she could find answers. Those relationships she's built have fueled her faith. Maria is living proof that life is better connected. Stories like hers are the kind of stories that we live for. That is our mission. Your generosity at Berean makes this kind of environment where people can belong, believe, and become fully devoted Jesus followers. Your gifts create stories like that. So if you'd like to give today, you can do that simply and securely online at bbctransform.org/give. And if you're not already a part of a Connect group here at Berean, Maria encouraged you, and we would encourage you to jump into one today. Find a Connect group where you can start building relationships like she did. If you'd like to do that, go to bbctransform.org/groups to get connected today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you next week.